Hi, I'm Bill.
And I'm Patrick.
And joining us tonight is John Engstrom. But before we get into, say hi, John.
Hi, John.
But before we get into the chat with John, we wanted to share a couple pieces of information. So, Patrick, why don't you share what we got coming up in a future episode?
So it looks like next week we should have Simon Lewis, which if you're on any of the Facebook channels with astrophotography, you know he's one of the ZWO guys. So, I mean, we're going to have tons of questions for him.
All right. Yeah, and he says he can talk the legs off a donkey or something.
Right.
So we're looking forward to that. The other thing is we would really encourage you to consider participating and joining one of our chats. As the three of us were just chatting before, it's really unrehearsed. It's no pressure, and all you really need is some headphones or earbuds and a camera on your desktop or laptop and a microphone, and we're pretty good. You're pretty much good to go. So there will be an email address in this video description. So please consider joining and use that email address to reach out to us, and then we'll share some details and get you scheduled. It's really pretty easy to make happen. All right, John, it's all yours.
All right. Well, I very much appreciate that. Thank you very much, Phil. Thank you, Patrick. I'd like to thank both of you for putting together the channel. I know that when I was starting out, YouTube was a great source of information, but the problem is, filtering out the important stuff from the unimportant stuff, trying to compare yourself to others that put together some amazing work is, obviously a big downer. You don't want to do that. And in fact, I'd like to start off just by pointing that this is astrophotography as a hobby. It's not a competition, right? We're in it for ourselves. We want to make images that we're excited about, that please us. Hopefully we improve. That's a priority for me, is getting better, but it's not so that I can be better than anyone else out there. It's all about, honing my own skills and the enjoyment in that. To that end, I wanted to share some of my early photos along with some of my later photos, just because I think it's important for beginners to realize that you don't produce these amazing APOD photographs your first time out, or even a month later or 6 months later. Those guys have been doing it for years, and you have to love it. You have to do it for yourself. It's something that you can try relatively modestly, and that's kind of what I wanted to show here. Is, with some basic equipment, give it a try. If you fall down the rabbit hole, like I know all of us have, then it's something you can pursue as long as it's bringing you, pleasure. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and start my presentation. Oops, I don't think yeah, there we go, allow. And let me get that up. There we go. And you can see that, Bill and Patrick?
Yeah, we can.
Yes.
Really good.
Yep.
Perfect. So that's kind of the point of this presentation, is just my progression as a beginner, and what equipment I had at the time, what equipment I added, and what my pictures looked like. So this was the very first picture I took back in December of 2020, the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. A lot of news about that happening, and it was a single shot, my DSLR on a tripod, and it actually got me hooked. I was like, this is really, really cool. From there, started doing some research, looking at cloudy nights, joining cloudy nights, that kind of stuff. And then I took a shot of Pleiades and Mars conjunction. And this was in March of 2021. And once again, exact same equipment, just a tripod, DSLR, and my telephoto lens. ended up stacking 240 of these 1.3 second exposures, and I thought it was great. And looking at it now, it's fraught with problems. But at the time, I was happy with that. I thought, hey, that's pretty cool. And I have always done this just for my own enjoyment. And so when I am able to process a picture and see something, that's what gives me joy. After that, of course, everyone's favorite, the Orion Nebula. And this was the same kind of setup, just a tripod, DSLR, telephoto lens, and ended up with 30 1-second exposures. So 30 seconds of total integration time, actually added darks. It was, hey, look at it. You can't see this with your naked eye. I live in an area that's probably, 40 miles north of Dallas, Mortal 5-ish location. So I have reasonable night skies. Not the best, not the worst. But even here, being able to see these kinds of details with your naked eye is impossible. So when I was able to capture it, I thought, man, the universe is amazing. Ended up taking a shot of the moon as well. And
Nice.
I'm not a planetary lunar photographer, but I can see why that appeals to certain people. It was early on, I decided, hey, I'm going to try out whatever I want to try out and see what really drives my interest. This is certainly not the best shot of the moon, but it was the best one I had taken in forever.
Better than any that I've taken.
Well,
I haven't even tried to take pictures of the moon yet.
yeah, I'm sure that if there are some planetary and lunar images out there, they would be willing to give a laundry list of problems with the image. But
Oh yeah,
that was like I said, not really the point. I'm not comparing myself to others, and I have seen some amazing planetary and lunar images taken by some folks that are just drop dead gorgeous. But it made me happy at the time. Used a program on my Mac called Linkios. Once again, 30 lights, 10 darks, 10 flats. First time I used flats. Telephoto lens, it's relatively easy to do. Then I took a picture of the Pleiades.
So back with that one. So you just those are just still images. You didn't shoot video of the moon?
Correct. I did not shoot.
Oh, okay. See, I've never done it. So I thought that all had to be done with video.
I think that's probably the best way is to do it with video.
To me, that looks great.
It was, and I didn't really realize it at the time, but in looking back on those subframes, that was a night of exceptional seeing. And I didn't even know about astrophyric, or clear dark sky or any of those forecasting sites. It was just I looked out, it was a clear night. I said I'll set up and shoot, and at the time it was some spectacular seeing.
Yeah,
I had seen Jupiter on a night of great seeing through a scope visually a little bit later. And it's quite a difference between a night of good seeing and bad seeing. I'd say we might get, 5% for clear nights or nights with good seeing. Shortly after that, took this image of the Pleiades, and here I took 210 lights. At this point, I was starting to get, really kind of excited and into it, and it's like, well, if some is good, then more is better. I was certainly reading that it's all about total integration time, and I was super excited because I was actually able to pick up some of the nebulosity. It's noisy as all hell, but hey, the fact that you can see dust out in space is just spectacular. So each of these, as I process them, grow more and more excited. This next one, I was telling Bill, this was probably and is probably today one of my favorite images, not because the quality is very good, but this was taken on a tripod with just my
Oh wow.
DSLR telephoto lens, 1.2-second exposures, and I took 772 of them. Actually used K-Stars and Ecos running on my Mac laptop to capture the images. And the fact that from a tripod, I could see the spiral arms in M81 was just, staggering to me. Photons produced in nuclear fusion reaction, literally millions of years ago, reaching my sensor.
Yeah.
It's just amazing, and all of that with just a tripod and a DSLR sitting on it. Now, granted, I had to go out and reframe often. I mean, if I recall, it was probably 20 times, but still, the fact that that could be done. And like I said, I have reasonable skies, especially to the north. It's dark. There's no major cities up to my north, so it was optimal conditions to be able to do this. But that really excited me. Then I got some new equipment. There was a Meade old 8-inch 2080 LX Schmidt cast grain that I picked up. Met a guy up in Oklahoma, a couple hundred miles. Picked it up. It was $300 for telescope and the clock drive and wedge and tripod. So I figured I couldn't go wrong. Had a great time using it visually, but then I started to take some photos through it. And once again, I look at this photo and I think, man, it's pretty terrible. But at the time, I loved it. My DSLR was not able to pick up the hydrogen alpha. This was almost completely gray, so that's photoshopped. And I know that there are a lot of folks out there that will not do that to an Astro image. I'm doing this for myself, so I don't have a problem, enhancing colors like that. But it was first time that I had used anything with a clock drive. It was 30-second exposures, which were too long. There's lots of star trailing. There's lots of stuff wrong with it. But at the time, I was like, hey, it's cool.
Right.
It certainly is.
Super happy with that. Then, of course, had to take a picture of M13. This was 15-second exposures. The star shapes are terrible. The guiding was terrible. Blah blah blah. Polar alignment was off. Lots of issues with it. Plus the optics in the telescope, have problems. But once again, it's not about making an image that's going to be on somebody's coffee table in an astrophotography book. Then I finally picked up a mount.
Wow.
And that really made a big difference. This is back to using my telephoto lens. Should have rotated this. This was, obviously Andromeda Galaxy, and stars in the corners are, misshapen because of the lens is not particularly good. The guiding on that night, well, it started off with guiding that wasn't that good. I had to kind of dial in the mount. Something else that beginners should be aware of: nobody is born with, just inherent knowledge of how these, pieces of gear work. And so you have to figure it out. A lot of that's through trial and error and reading and playing around with it. So don't be afraid to, take images, make some changes, see what it does, and figure things out. I had to do a lot of that and still have to do a lot of it. And I expect that I'll be having to do a lot of it for years to come. But, I think that was a giant step up just to be able to guide, just to be able to, have something that was reasonably steady and, relatively stable compared to what I had been shooting on. Also started to use APT to capture images, which big step up from an intervalometer. And then I got my triplet, apochromatic. Love this scope. Still have this and use it to this day. In fact, tonight when we're done, I'm going to be setting it up for capturing more subs on the California Nebula. That's my current project.
I'm working on the same one myself.
Awesome.
Yep.
Well, I have my work in progress here at the end. It's only a couple of nights. I want to get a couple more nights on it, but I'm pretty happy with how it's turning out. So this, obviously, I keep going back to M45. Love the Pleiades, and obviously this is way better than anything I had taken before. And it's not like you get a new piece of equipment and the very next image you take is fantastic. I mean, there's several images that I skipped over in this presentation because it is usually fairly incremental changes. Although when you get certain pieces of equipment, it does help to take a big step forward.
Oh yeah, and you've even got all the dust around it, not just all the stuff that's in the Pleiades. That's awesome.
And 3-minute shouldn't have done that. 3-minute exposures, 180 seconds. So that was arguably too long. A lot of these cords are blown out, blah, blah, blah. But with 60 lights, 3 hours of exposure, that's a pretty decent amount of integration time, or at least it was for me back then. That was the beginning of this year. I have since stepped up my integration time game, but yeah, it's getting this dust lanes out here, getting the color differential out here, all of that is just super exciting. The other big thing that I haven't really mentioned that I want to mention is processing. Bill, Patrick, y'all can attest to this. Nobody is born knowing how to drive,
right.
Serial, Deep Sky Stacker, PixInsight, even GIMP or Photoshop. It is something that takes a long time to learn. Learning how to stretch, learning how to color balance, learning how to apply curves, learning how many iterations of those things need to be done. That takes time. It takes experience, and it's still something that I kind of guess at and work my way through, especially the stretching. So,
and that's the first thing we always do is we always overstretch everything and blow everything out because we want to bring it all out with our 5 stacked images that we got. Yeah,
exactly. Yep. So learning to control that a little bit better, and yet still be able to bring up some of the fainter stuff. And I was doing that through curves after I had done the stretch. But it takes a fine touch, and that's a skill that you can only get through experience. What is the old saying about wisdom comes from making mistakes, or
we
experience.
Through trial and error,
wisdom,
or even failure
exactly.
teaches us a lot.
Exactly. So don't to all the folks that are out there starting watching this, don't be afraid to fail. There is absolutely nothing wrong with spending 4 or 5 hours taking images and even not ending up with anything. That happens. It's happened to me bunches of times. So
it just happened to me the other night. I was shooting Flaming Star, and I set up the whole sequence and didn't realize it was right next to the moon. All my images, you just see that the moon, the
huge glow,
it threw away all of them.
Yep, I've done that too. Then ended up taking another picture of Orion. This is my best to date, although it's on my list to capture again this year, and we'll be showing a slide about that in a minute. But once again, I have my mount, German equatorial mount, have my nice triplet apochromatic refractor. I'm still using my unmodified DSLR first time I had ever actually combined different exposure lengths, stacked them all separately and then blended them all in Photoshop. But, the images are actually now kind of starting to get, I think, okay.
Yeah,
I mean, that looks
that
good.
one looks nice. See the Running Man over there? Yeah, it's a nice,
Yep.
nice image.
Then I finally
Wow.
decided that I'd make the big step. And that, the mono astrocam, if you've decided that you're going to be involved in the hobby long term, then it just makes sense. Obviously, I would not recommend any beginner shell out, even for a 533 MC, because that's still $900. And why spend $900 if it's not a hobby you're going to be doing for a long time? But once you've decided that you've taken enough pictures, if you have a DSLR, pick one up cheap, you want to continue this, then I think it's a important step. This was a image of the pelican that I shot over 3 nights. This was my first multi-night exposure or multi-night target. Ended up with 13 hours and 47 minutes of integration time, almost 14 hours. Started using Nina too. And Bill, I know that you have recently gone to the dark side with the ASI Air, but
Well, no, I did with my Zenithstar because I had to backfill because I moved my 294 filter wheel and everything and mini computer over to the Edge HD. But I'm still, I'm not giving up on Nina yet.
Okie doke. And I mean, I just kind of giving you a hard time. I think like everything else, these are all just tools, and you use the best tool for the job for you.
Yeah.
And if that means, an old laptop running some ancient software, if that works for you, then great. If it means, the latest ASI Air Plus, then that's great too. It's really all about whatever makes you happy and meets your needs to capture stuff. And then this is my current project. Work in progress. I have 2 nights on it. We have had a run of terrible weather, and I am looking forward to getting set up tonight because it's been a long time. So this is so far 13 hours and 42 minutes. I'd really like to get another, 10-ish hours on it. And, I think that with that much integration time, I would be, super happy with the details, the contrast, the noise, and everything else. All of the stuff that I didn't even really know or care about when I started taking pictures with that first shot of Mars and Pleiades. It means something to me now. Didn't then, and honestly, I don't think it should have back then. So it's
John,
all about just. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say it's all about making these small incremental steps to get, from where you start to where you are.
So, do you feel that your luminous filter is really enhancing the amount of detail you can get now that you've moved over to RGB imaging?
I do. And it's so can it be accomplished with RGB? I think the answer is yes. And I think that a lot of the more experienced astrophotographers will use exclusively RGB. But I have found that the signal I get with luminance, as far as the details that I see, are certainly enhanced for the same time spent. Now, for a target like California Nebula here, it's not as big as some others. It's not as big as I'm going to expect it to be on the Orion Nebula. But part of that is because red is where almost all the signal is anyways. There is some signal in blue and very, very little in green for LRGB. But, luminance is capturing all of that. So just as far as details, 10 seconds of luminance is kind of sort of the equivalent of 10 of each of of R, of G, and of B combined. So rather than spending 30 seconds, I can get that same level of detail in 10 seconds.
Yeah, that's something that still challenges me is the ratio between luminous and the other filters. So that's still something I'm learning based upon the target. But
and I've been playing around with it lately. And in fact, you can see that I've been shooting at 180 seconds for luminance and 180 seconds for RGB. I don't need to. Integration time really is way more important. I just wanted to see what that would do. Obviously, it blows the star cores out, so I'm going to have to shoot a couple of hours of much shorter exposures for just the stars, which I plan on doing. But it was an experiment. It's like, hey, let me push this and see if there's actually any benefit to it. And from what I've seen, there's not.
There's one thing I noticed by some beginners that I see, at least on cloudy nights, they have it within their ability based upon their kit to try something, but yet they'll ask the question rather than try it with what they have. I think an important part is having this willingness to explore, to do that trial and error, to see how, if you change some of the parameters, how you can maybe optimize the result. And I think, I'm always curious about that when people go for the answer rather than trying to figure it out for themselves. But again, we all look at this for different reasons and are doing it for different reasons. But one thing I love about astronomical imaging is you can try stuff out,
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah. As I say, that's the thing. It's like everyone thinks that, I just ruined a night. The thing is, you've learned something. And also, even if you blow it for this year, it's going to be back next year. It's not going anywhere.
Unless it's Comet Neowise or something. But
Right.
Those are few and far between.
So do you is that basically it? Okay.
That was it. Yeah, that was it.
So what I'm seeing through your presentation, and I don't want to misrepresent your message, but what you shared was an incremental journey of starting in a modest state, and then building upon that as you gain more experience, and then starting to change out some of the equipment that you're using. And I think, one of the things I always felt about my channel was, I was missing the more modest imager that starts, with a DSLR and a tripod, or, even a Skywatcher, Sky Adventure, or whatever. You don't have to go right to the high end.
Yeah. And it's actually, I was thinking about this, in fact, a few weeks ago. I bet if I were to hand Adam Block or Nico Carver or any number of astrophotographers out there a DSLR kit lens and a tracking, just a tracker, no guiding, no whatever, they could produce results that are probably better than mine. Well, no, they would produce results better than mine. And the reason is they know what the tool can do. And so they would focus on using it in a way on a target that it's best suited for. And that's just not knowledge that, we're necessarily going to know when we start. arc seconds per pixel. Well, what's that? What's image scale? Why is that important? Your periodic error in your mount. What does that even mean? How is that important? I mean, there's literally hundreds, if not thousands, of these little details that you learn by doing, or at least I learned by doing. Sure, you can read about them, but until I put my hands on something, I don't get a good feel for how stuff works. Until I open my mount up, I didn't really get a good feel for, how it all came together.
Yeah.
And all of those effects, all of those things are just they're both pleasure and pain sometimes. But for me, I mean, I'm a software engineer, so I love finding problems and figuring out how stuff works, and then being able to put stuff together, testing stuff out. All of that is it makes me mentally, just thrilled, and to be able to produce a photo at the end, that's all the more better, because there is a sense of just wonder that I get, at least looking up at the night sky, and that can be accomplished visually. Hell, that can be accomplished, and it was for me. Just I spent a couple of months going outside, sitting in a chair, and looking at the stars with my eyes, figuring out constellations, figuring out what was up there. I'm reading about some of these nebula, some of these star clusters, before I even set up, the camera on the tripod to try to take a picture. And I think that's an important. I won't say you need that for astrophotography, but it's, for me, an important background to kind of understand things.
Yeah, I felt like I was cheating. So I came from photography, and I was looking for something to do when COVID hit, and I felt like I was cheating because the first time I found myself around visual astronomers, and they can walk the sky, they know where everything's at, and they look at live photons. And what am I doing? I'm
Yes.
not capturing, but
It's like program into your mount or use your software and have it use
yeah,
blip solving, and it just goes there.
yeah, these
Yep.
guys are looking through a scope of some, a guide scope of a sort, and then moving their big Dobsonian around and finding these targets, and then they'll tell you everything about it. And you know that you know that really helped me in a sense. The first time I got to look through someone's visual telescope, it just really was fascinating, and it had made me, now I go outside more of my van when I'm out imaging and spend more time at the night, and I use something called sky map or something, just moving it around the sky and seeing what's there. And then when I shoot a target, I like to learn about it. Is it a star factory like that area in your Pelican
Yes.
nebula? You know, and how many light years away? And so it just naturally is pulling me in to learn more about the cosmos and what's out there, and that's just added for me an exciting dimension beyond the images that you can produce. But yeah,
Well, and Bill and Patrick, I think both of you are, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but one of my biggest um, driving forces in the way I think is I love to learn.
Mhm.
Learning is gaining knowledge, and not knowledge necessarily that's a somewhat soft science, but more hard science knowledge. Gaining that, just it opens up the universe, and whether that's on a quantum level or on a galactic level, um, doesn't really matter. It's that kind of being able to learn and understand and figure out how things work is a constant driving force with the way I think about things.
yeah. I wonder if anyone's done a profile of astronomical imagers. So what is the predominant background or backgrounds that people come from? So
Yep.
that'd be kind of interesting.
I was actually kind of wondering if there's like one of those personality profiles.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that'd be good. Well, John, excellent presentation, and really,
Yes.
from my perspective, this was what I was hoping to expose to viewers is, journeys like yours and how you started from a modest approach and then just built upon it as you gained the knowledge and everything, and sharing that you love to learn, because this is a big opportunity to learn. It's an excellent hobby if you want to learn. When I first got started, I was overwhelmed by the information I was reading on cloudy nights.
Oh,
I thought my brain was going to explode. So I just kind of
Yeah.
told myself, okay, just get started
Yep.
and you'll figure it out as you go along. And the big thing for me was when someone explained to me that, I think I got involved because I enjoy capturing data, and I was afraid of the processing side. But when someone told me, it's kind of your art, when you get into the processing realm, we really don't know what these objects necessarily look like. So don't feel like there's some exact thing you got to hit. Make something that's pleasing to
Yes.
your eye, and you'll be okay. And I liked how when you said early on that you're not here to be in competition with anyone. It's more of an enjoyment pursuit for you. So, all right. I don't know
Well-
how to go ahead.
I was just gonna say thank you for that.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for letting me share this, and I do think it's important to let beginners know if they want to try it, if they have just a camera and a tripod. Hell, that honestly doesn't have to be a DSLR. You can take pictures of the night sky. There's nothing wrong with being able to steady your camera. They have night exposures, or your phone. Most of them have night exposures on their cameras. Take a picture and see what you see, and see if it's something that gets your blood boiling and gets you excited, because that's how it all started with me, with that conjunction. And it was like, yeah, it's a terrible picture, but it made me excited, it made me happy. So
And I think I shared with you, John, that before Patrick came on, that my first image was my Canon 6D. I think I was using just a 35 millimeter lens on a camera tripod of Mars. A Mars. I didn't even know the difference
Little
between
tiny,
planets
tiny
and
dot.
nebulas or anything at that time, but it was fun.
But
when you processed it, you saw something, and it was kind of
yes.
cool.
And that's it, is you don't actually have to know the difference between a planet and a nebula and a star cluster, an open cluster versus all of that is knowledge that you can pick up along the way. If you enjoy taking pictures of things, then start there.
All right.
yeah.
Okie doke.
Maybe
Well,
we'll close out here real quick. Anything, Patrick? Again, I think we want to mention Simon Lewis in an upcoming episode from ZWO.
Right.
And if you like this kind of content, please give it a thumbs up. But more importantly, consider coming on a chat and share your story and your images with the audience. We really appreciate that. You'll find an email that you can reach out to us to schedule a time to be on an episode. We'd really appreciate that. And hopefully all people that are in the beginning end of this journey, hopefully you learn some valuable information through John's experiences and stay engaged in the process. So, all right, anything else before we go?
thank you, Bill. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you,
We're
John.
good. Yep.
Patrick,
Thank you, John.
talk
Yep.
to you Saturday, or if not sooner.
Right.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for viewing, and please leave any comments or questions that you might have. And if you have any specific questions for John, I have his email address, so I can forward them to him.
Or just post them
well.
in the comments, and I'll answer.
Okay,
Yep. That
fantastic.
works.
All right, everyone. Thank you.
Alrighty.
Until next
Thanks,
time.
everybody.
Bye.